Secretary DeVos.
Well, and I would just add to that, Senator Tim Scott has a bill introduced in Congress that would do just that, would empower parents to make the choice for their children to find the right setting and the right fit for them, depending on their circumstances. And with the President's bold leadership here, I think we can get it done. Congress can do the right thing on behalf of parents and their kids.
So, Mike, we'll let him know we're in favor of that. Tim Scott is fantastic, and the bill is really good, so why don't we do that, okay?
We will, Mr. President, I assure you.
Excellent. You've always been the school choice president, the school choice candidate. I know as governor of Indiana, Vice President Pence expanded charter schools and other educational freedom opportunities. And I will say that we as a nation can philosophically and politically differ on many issues, but I've never, ever heard a very compelling and persuasive, memorable reason why people oppose the kind of school choice that the two of you are fighting for. And school choice means parent choice. So our last set of questions really go to the parents and the importance of parents' ability to choose the right education for their children, particularly within this dual medical and financial pandemic. Mr. President, we have with us today, and I want to read it so I get it all right, Janie Neely of Columbia, South Carolina. She's a former public school teacher herself. She's a reading specialist. Her zone school district plans to provide full-time virtual instruction. She believes her high schooler will be fine, but her kindergartner has Down syndrome and must receive in-person instruction. Janie's husband, Chris, is here. He serves as the chairman of the President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities. Thank you very much for being here, Chris, and God bless both of you and your children. Would you like to tell us a little bit, Janie, about how you're approaching this school year?
Absolutely. When schools closed in the spring abruptly, it was especially difficult for families with children that have special needs because for us, it was like falling off an early intervention cliff. Schools not only provide the academics for students with special needs, but it also provides the much needed therapies and services to address developmental delays. And the structure and routine of school day is so critical for this population of students. It simply cannot be replicated in a virtual platform, and especially for a kindergartner with Down syndrome. Unfortunately, our school district has adopted a virtual-only reopening plan, and it's been extremely disappointing because as a parent, I wish that I'd been given a choice because I know for a fact that this style of learning will cause my son to regress and to fall behind. And we were working so hard for him to be fully included with his peers. So my hope is that we can all work together to get in-person learning, especially open for the students that are most vulnerable, and to have that choice for parents, because I know my son best and I know what he needs.
That's really well said. So it's been a burden, a tremendous burden, and what you've been through has been a great burden, obviously. How do they change that? How do they change it? What would you recommend?
I think families with children with special needs were already carrying a pretty tremendous burden. We are constantly incorporating different therapies and things of that nature. What's nice about it being incorporated in the school is that it happens during the school day. Unfortunately, in my situation, we've now been forced to change and to find another school option for our son. We're fortunate because a lot of families don't have that option because smaller schools, private schools, parochial schools may not have the staff and the structure to accept children with special needs. So there's not always that option. We're fortunate in that situation, but now my family's taking on the burden of not budgeting and planning for tuition. So having the dollars follow the student is very critical for a family like ours, and now I'm also having to plan all of his therapies on the outside. So we're talking about a kindergartner that's going to school from 8 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon, and then he has to have occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy all after school. That's a long day.
It's a lot of work.
It is. Thank you.
Fantastic job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How did she do, Chris? She did excellent. Not bad. Not too bad.
Thank you. You know, I think the conversation in America right now, the children with special needs have really been left out. And so, Mr. President, I want to thank this administration. Mr. Vice President, when you and the Secretary came to Columbia a few weeks ago, you addressed that issue, that people with disabilities are being left out. And so what we have here are people that are on the front lines in education that are saying we can open the schools for everyone. I visited 2 schools this week in South Carolina that have charter schools. Students are in class, teachers are there, they're learning, they're playing with each other. I mean, it's been a great experience. So we can do this in America. We can get America back to school and make our education system great.
That's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Florida's Commissioner of Education, Mr. Corcoran, you spearheaded an emergency declaration with Governor DeSantis basically to meet the demands of parents for in-person instruction. I'm very struck when I read these parent surveys in many districts. Parents overwhelmingly are saying yes when they are asked, do you feel it is safe for your son or daughter to return to school? And often they're being big-footed by a county health commissioner or a school board. How are you meeting that demand, and how do you know that parents are so in demand in Florida for in-person instruction? What are you hearing?
Well, we did exactly as you said. We did an emergency order that basically gave increased flexibility and increased choice to parents, teachers, and the districts, and a certainty in the funding. But if you're not, and what we were saying and what got reported, the same day you said open school, so they said we colluded. I wish I colluded with you.
That sounds like a good idea.
They like that word.
But we opened up, we said you have to open up as an option 5 days a week for school children. And now in Florida, we're in August. Our first schools are opening up this week. And throughout August, we'll have all 67 our districts will open up. We've not approved a single plan, to your point and your point, even in our Phase 1 counties in southeast Florida. We've told them, you better open up for children with unique abilities on day one. You cannot do virtual therapies. You can't do virtual, and we just had a forum the other day with another parent who had a Down's child, and he just thrives when he's around other kids, and when he's at home, he's literally being diagnosed with depression because he's not around kids. They have to have that right away, and so we'll open up, and the great news is we'll have probably already we have 13 districts that open up this week. Of those 13 districts, this is the amazing thing, to your point, we are being sued by the union bosses, and they are disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. And so we have multiple suits going. But the reality is, of the districts that opened up this week, 6 of them have almost 100% teacher participation. You know what teachers want? Teachers want to be back in the classroom with their kids. Even if they have an underlying condition, they want to be back. And that's what we're seeing in Florida. And when we get to August 31st, all the districts open up, we're going to have probably 70 to 80% of students in face-to-face options, and we'll have more than that percentage in teachers in the classroom with their students. And there's just no substitute for it. You hear it. We have the largest virtual school in the country. It is a second-tier education. The best education is when you got a great teacher, a great mentor, someone who's got great wisdom, all the children and their peers together getting a great education. And an education, we say, is everything. Education is freedom. Education is the uplifting of the human soul to the glorious light of truth. And to deny a child that kind of education, you're robbing them of a lifetime, not just of earnings, a lifetime of who they are as human beings. And I stole that from Frederick Douglass, but but that is really what education goes to. And that's what I loved what the Royal Academy said when they said you're scarring a generation of children for their futures. That's what we're doing when you don't have that option. But hey, if you're a parent, I have 6 children, 2 in elementary school, 1 in middle, 2 in high school, 1 in college, all public school. All of them are going back to school. But I completely respect and wanted to honor the decision of a parent who says, well, what about, I don't feel safe. I think the evidence is overwhelming. We've all seen it. But if you have that right. If you want to do distance learning, we're going to do the best possible way. But to the other 70, 80% of us, we have the right to go back and have our kids get that world-class education.
It is interesting because one thing we've learned during this horror show of the China plague is that virtual is not as good as being there. Virtual is just not the same thing. And for a long time, we've been hearing how great it would be, how great it would be. Well, we've had the ultimate sample, right? Namely, the whole country practically, and it's not as good. We've also learned that telehealth is very good. Telehealth is up 3,500%. It's incredible. Can you imagine that 3,500 where people can stay in their homes, their apartments, wherever they are, and they can not have to go to hospitals and doctors and everything else. That's been an incredible success. Who would have thought that's become tremendous and really has been good, but the virtual learning is not like being in a classroom. And we've learned that, I think, very strongly in almost all cases. People thought for a long time that would be the answer, but that's not the answer. The answer is an old-fashioned one, isn't it, huh? Thank you. Great job you do in Florida. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, our final guest is a mom in Fairfax County, Lindsay Ammon. She's one of the parents who said yes to the question, do you feel safe returning your children to school? And her older daughter will have in Fairfax County just 4 half days of virtual instruction at her grade level and 1 day off. So Lindsay has decided to exercise her parent choice and do pod homeschooling. Can you tell us about that, please?
Yes, absolutely. That's all correct. Everything that everyone has already mentioned, we also had a very poor experience with virtual learning. The kindergarten age, I think, is very difficult, as everyone has already spoken about. But she also, it's important to note, was an absolute lover of learning in general. She is very bright, very eager to learn. And we really watched that all fade. We watched her education deteriorate. And we also really saw her mental health suffer over the course of the spring. So we were, very eager to get her back into in-person learning, and we really felt very confident and comfortable with the precautions that were put in place by our district. Originally, we were offered 2 days in person, 3 days virtual, and then that's actually since changed over the last few weeks, and we are now 100% virtual. Fortunate for us, we had already kind of gone a different route and set up a homeschool situation for her with a small group of parents in our community. And, we're very grateful for that. That was certainly not, an easy choice to make. It was an unexpected cost and something we hadn't planned for, but we felt like it was really, really important for her to be in a classroom setting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very uniform, very interesting, and I think most people do feel this way. Wouldn't you say so? I think most people feel this way. We have a man with us who's a great expert from Stanford. He's working with us. He's consulting with us, and he's going to be at our press conference in a little while at 5:30. But maybe Scott Atlas, Dr. Scott Atlas, could say just a couple of words, and we're going to be covering it in more detail in a little while. And you folks are, if you're interested in watching, we'd love to have you. Scott, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor to be asked to help out in any way I can, and the event I thought was terrific. I want to thank everyone for participating, and sort of to reiterate the bottom line on this, as the President and Vice President and Secretary DeVos have said, which is we know that the risk of the disease is extremely low for children, even less than that of seasonal flu. We know that the harms of locking out the children from school are enormous. And we also know, as we all would agree, that educating America's children is right at the top of the list for our nation's priorities. So I thank the President and everyone here for acknowledging these truths and to get kids back to school safely. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. It's very good. So we'll have more from Scott in a little while. We're going to meet together, and we've been working with him very closely, all of the task force, all of the White House, and we've made a lot of progress. We've made tremendous progress. You see other countries are now blowing up in terms of the disease. You call it what you want. So many different names for the disease, whether it's China virus and some I won't get into because I just get myself in trouble every time I do, but I'm angry about it, and so is everybody else in this country angry about it. So we will have a press conference in a little while. You'll be seeing the doctor, you'll be seeing a few of the people, and I'll be making a statement. And I think that'll start at about 5:30. I want to thank everybody very much for coming in and being with you. We're on your side, 100%. We're on your side. We'd like to also see football get going. We want to see college football, and I don't know what they're doing with high school football, but I guess it's the same kind of a thought process. So we want to see that happen, and I think some of it will happen. To a large extent, it's going to happen. They want to do it. I'll tell you who wants to do it are the players and the coaches. They want to do it. I spoke with Trevor Lawrence, the great quarterback, and he's very smart. He understood it very well. He said, hey, I'm a lot safer in the field than I am being out there. And he got it. He got it very quickly. Coach O, I spoke with him. He's some coach, that one. He's a great coach, and he He feels his players just want to be out there. So we've spoken to a lot of different people, and they want to get out. And our country's opening up. We're opening up very strongly. If you look at retail sales numbers, car sale numbers, used car numbers, and employment numbers, we're hiring over the last 3 months the most people ever hired in the history of our country. So you had a lower base, but nevertheless, we hired a tremendous amount, by far the biggest number of people ever hired during a 3-month period, so for the quarter. So I just want to thank everybody. We'll see you folks in a little while, and thank you very much. Appreciate it.